Today, we will start with the new chapter in Bio, Standard 8. That is reproduction in plants. So it is reproduction in plants. Okay, that's the chapter number 2, and that's reproduction in plants. So first of all, let us understand what do we mean by reproduction. So whenever any particular organism gives rise to, or gives birth or produces a young one of its same kind, then such a kind of a process is called as reproduction. So reproduction is giving birth or generating or forming or producing a young ones of its own kind. Okay, so that's why we see that from a mango tree, the plant of a mango tree, the seeds of the mango tree will be giving rise to mango plant. Humans give birth to humans, cat gives birth to cat. Okay, so all these processes are nothing but reproduction. So reproduction, all living organisms produce individuals of their own kind for the survival of their species. This is called as reproduction. So we see that the main purpose of reproduction can be said to be as the survival of that species. If the reproduction of that particular species stops, then automatically that species will get extinct. Okay, so that's why reproduction is a very important phenomena for the survival of a particular species. Reproduction in plants also means to produce new plants of their own kind. Okay, so in plants also we have got a similar kind of a thing, that they are going to reproduce the plants of the same or similar kind. So that's why, or their own kind. So that's why we have the definition of reproduction as reproduction means producing young ones of its own kind. Okay, so this reproduction means producing the young ones of its own kind. Now there are two basic modes of reproduction. That is, in plants there are two methods by which reproduction can take place. The first one is called as asexual, which is also called as vegetative, and the next one is sexual. Okay, so the basic two modes of reproduction in plants are asexual or vegetative and sexual reproduction. Now the lower plants like bacteria, algae, fungi reproduce by fission, fragmentation, etc. A few plants also reproduce by forming spores. Some plants, parts of the plant themselves like the leaves, stem, leaves or the roots also help in producing new plants. So we can see that the plants, it is not necessary that all the plants will produce a seed and then it is going to grow into a plant. Because to form a seed there will be requirement of the sexual method, that means the production of a flower which will have a pollen grain, which will be having the sperm cell or the male cell, and there will be a ova or the ovary, and then the fertilization taking place. So that is one part in which the male and the female gametes are required, whereas in case of asexual method, that is basically firstly in the lower parts of the plants like the bacteria, algae, fungi. Of course we cannot call them exactly as plants, but they are similar to that. That's why they are considered as the one which will be asexual method of reproduction. That is, firstly there could be fission, that means one cell dividing into two, then two dividing into four, four dividing into eight, and this way the generation keeps on moving from one to another. So that is called as the fission. The next one could be fragmentation. A part of it is broken down and it is forming into a new part. So that's why it is called as fragmentation. or so all these, and sometimes even the parts of the plant itself, they are going to give rise to a new plant. So there could be a modified leaf, modified stem, modified root. Accordingly, there will be the different kinds of reproduction, which is asexual or vegetative reproduction in plants. So all these methods like the fragmentation or fission, the fission of the binary fission or fission of the cell, or the modified stem, root or leaves, these are called as comes under the category of asexual or vegetative kind of reproduction. So all these methods are included under asexual or vegetative reproduction, also called vegetative propagation. So vegetative propagation and vegetative reproduction is one and the same. But most plants you see around bear flowers, and these flowers have male and female reproductive parts. So the flowers are, we can say the flower is the sexual part of that particular plant. Flower has got both the reproductive gametes, that is, it has got the male as well as the female reproductive parts, which ultimately produce the seed. So flower, when it is going to get fertilized, the egg and the sperm are going to get fertilized, they are going to form the seed. So seed germinate to produce new plants. So this type of reproduction through flowers and seed is called as sexual reproduction. So this is how you understand what is sexual and asexual reproduction. In case of a sexual reproduction, there are the male and the female organs. There are the male and the female reproductive parts which are going to fertilize and give rise to a seed. The seed which produces the further produces the plant. Whereas in case of asexual method, there is no male and female organs. There are no male and female. It is just that the modified leaf or modified shoot or modified stem or root is going to form into a new plant. There could be also in smaller place like binary fission and fragmentation. So now we study in a bit detail of the asexual reproduction in plants. So asexual reproduction is quite common among plants. This can take place by different methods as described below. So we have the asexual method one by one. Let's see. The first one is binary fission. Binary fission. Binary means two. Okay. So we have the first one, asexual method. So asexual method, the first one. So it is asexual. It is, first one is binary fission. Now, binary means two and fission means breaking or separating. Okay, so two parts. So basically, we can say when any particular cell divides into two parts, that each and every part is going to be an individual organism, then that particular kind of reproduction is called as binary fission. So one cell breaking into two cells, and then there will be two identical cells, then it is going to be binary fission. So one matured cell is going to be combined. So they are given a figure over here for a bacteria that there was one single cell, and then you can see one plate coming in between, and the nucleus is separated into two parts, and then the plate divides the whole cell into two parts. Hence this is nothing but binary fission. So lower plants like bacteria reproduce asexually by method of binary fission. Binary means two and fission means splitting, separating or splitting. So binary fission means splitting into two parts. In this method, the nucleus splits or divides into two, and then the cell splits across the middle, forming two identical cells called the daughter cells. So we know that the one particular cell is going to be dividing. So first thing what is happening is the nucleus which is there in the center of the cell is going to split. That is going to split, and then there is a wall which is going to be generated between the two nucleus जो separate हो उसके बीच में there will be a wall generated, and then that wall is going to break that two things into two separate we can say cells, and that's why we can see that two identical cells are going to be generated from one, and these two identical cells which are generated are called as daughter cells. Okay, they are called as daughter cells. Now if you think that, okay, why not son cells and not why daughter cells, so it's a simple thing, as these daughter cells are going to reproduce in future, so that's why these daughter cells are going to split into two more, and accordingly this daughter will become the mother. So accordingly we consider as the only the female kind of a thing, that it will be daughter cells, again it become mother, and then becomes daughter cells again, and so on. So that's why it is a two daughter cells. In some organisms like chlorella and chlamydomonas, one cell divides into four daughter cells. This is called multiple fission. So in some cases it is not just binary, that is not two, but it will be four. So if it is going to be that one cell is dividing into multiples, so if one is dividing into three or four, then it is called as multiple fission. Okay. The next one is called as budding. So the next one, so first one was binary fission. The second one over here is budding. Now budding is nothing but a extension. You can say a baby plant is born on the same plant which first grows and then splits into a separate plant. So it will be like this, that suppose this is one particular cell, and then there will be another cell which will be generated just on top of it, one or maybe two of them, and these ones then break up and they form into the individual cells. So this way this is going to be, now this thing which is coming out from the original cell is nothing but the bud. So that's why they are called as a budding or the bud cells are going to be there present on that mother cell. So this method is common in yeast. Yeast is a kind of a microorganism. Here the parent cell produces an outgrowth called bud. So the parent cell is producing an outgrowth. Outgrowth means there is one more smaller kind of a cell generated on top of it. So that's why this is called as the parent cell, and this is the outgrowth of the cell, which is the bud. Outgrowth called the bud. The bud grows and then gets detached from the parent body to lead an independent life. So the bud will be there till the time it requires a nutrition from the parent cell. Once it is capable of producing its own nutrition, not taking its own nutrition from outside, then it will be forming into a new identity itself. So that's why it is going to be budding. So first the bud formation takes place from on the cell, and then when it matures, it gets detached and it lives an independent life. The next one is fragmentation. So the third one is fragmentation. Now fragmentation is the one in which a part of that particular organism is detached and it forms into a new kind of a cell. So in this case, fragments. Fragment means a part. Fragment means a part of a cell. So when a part of a cell is detached and it is forming into a new cell and it is developing into a new organism, that is called as fragmentation. So example is Spirogera. Spirogera, what we see inside the water, the green colored things, green colored line with thread-like structures. So that thread-like structures inside the river or inside of a lake will be nothing but Spirogera. So organisms like Spirogera, which are made of long ribbon like filaments, reproduce by fragmentation. The filament grows and breaks off into two or more parts called fragments. So that particular filament is going to grow and break up into two or more parts. That each and every part becomes an individual organism which grows by itself later on. So each fragment then grows into an individual. So this way the fragments are going to be forming into a new organism by itself. So that is nothing but fragmentation. The next one, the fourth one, is spore formation. Now this spore formation is normally taking place in fungus. So spore formation is common in plants like mosses and ferns. These are ornamental plants and bear spores on the underside of their leaves. So there are leaves के नीचे एक spores रहते हैं. Now these spores are nothing but something what we call it, we can say that they are the seeds which are growing over there. So somewhat like that. We cannot exactly call them seeds because they are called as spores, because they are not going to generate that way. They don't need soil and all. They are just something which is going to be having the nucleus in it, the cells which are there on the underside of the leaf of the fern and the mosses. So these are ornamental plants and bear spores on the underside of the leaves. The spores are light and can be carried away by wind or insect to different places. So they are very lightweight. So when the wind comes, it just spreads, and when it flows out, it will settle down somewhere and grow into a new plant. So on reaching suitable conditions for growth, spores give rise to a new plant. So that's why we can consider much more as a seed. So that spores can be considered to be as seeds, because they are going to just be moving around with the air, and as they move around, they are going to settle down, and wherever they get the suitable conditions, favorable conditions for growth, they are going to grow into a new plant. So that is the spore formation. Now we come to the next part, and that is the vegetative production. So the fifth one is vegetative production. Now this vegetative production is of many types. So we'll see all the different kinds of vegetative production one by one. So first of all, in this method, new plants are produced by the vegetative parts of the plant called propagulans. Now propagules, the one, because we say it is vegetative propagation, so the one which is going to propagate into a new plant is called as vegetative propagules. So that is the propagules. These are the ones which could be the vegetative parts, means the leaf, stem and root. Potato, mint, ginger, sugarcane, banana, etc. are reproduced by this method. So there are so many different types of vegetative production. So we'll go by the ones one by one. So that was the before that, we'll just go through this thing once again. The asexual reproduction has got 5 different kinds. One is binary fission, that is splitting into 2 parts. So we can say splitting, much better word. So it is splitting into 2 parts, that is binary fission. Then there is budding. The bud is being formed and it is getting separated. Fragmentation is for the long thread-like structure. So one of the thread is going to separate out and cut down into smaller parts, that is fragments. Spore formation will be underneath the leaves. There will be spores which is going to be carried by the wind, and they are going to settle down at a place where they can grow, where the favorable climatic conditions or the favorable conditions are available to that particular spore for growth. And finally is vegetative propagation, and we are going to see the vegetative production one by one. That could be through the stem, the roots or the leaves. So that is why a certain kind of plants, they have got their roots as modified roots, stem as modified stem, or leaves as modified leaves, such that these parts can also act as a reproductive part, that they can grow into a new plant if when it is getting a suitable condition. So accordingly, we see that that's the reason they are called as vegetative propagation, or we call it as propagules, because they are the one which are going to propagate into a new plant. Okay, so that is about vegetative production. So we go one by one with the different kinds of vegetative production. So vegetative production, first one is reproduction by roots. So the first one is reproduction by roots. Sorry, it is by stem first. So we go as per the textbook. It is by stem. So when we talk about reproduction by stem, so first thing is the common grass and mint grow their stems horizontally parallel to the ground. Now you must have seen the grass. Grass अगर हम लोग देखेंगे कोई भी जगह पे grass रहेगा and you try to pull it out, you will find that you will not pull it out as a grass. It will pull, when you pull it out, there will be a long but the stem which is connected to another one, then connected another one, then connected another. So when you are pulling it out, the whole thing comes out. Okay, so when it is coming out, so you can see it will be something like this. So this is the grass over here, and then there will be line over here, then there will be another grass over here, then there will be line over here, another grass over here, and all of them will be having certain amount of roots over here. So the roots will be at the bottom, but this stem, this is the one which is the stem. What is the one which is the modified stem? Why? Because if I just want to grow them, I'm just going to allow that stem to grow in this in the next direction, and wherever the stem goes, that will start growing into new roots, and the new grass is going to start growing. So this way, this particular kind of reproduction is the modified stem. So grass is going to be, so new roots and should develop at their nodes. So these are called as the nodes. There will be nodes over here. So this is the new roots are going to be available at the nodes. And these roots grow downwards into the soil and they shoot upwards to form the new plant. So even if I cut this thing over here and take this and put it somewhere else, again this node is going to grow further, have some new roots, new shoots, and it will keep on growing that way. That's the reason the grass grows very fast in an area where even if it is completely there is no production, nothing growing over there, but then if there is some rainfall or something is there, they will find that the grass starts growing in that particular area without anybody actually sowing them. So these roots grow downwards in the soil and they shoot upwards to form the new plant. The next is ginger is a modified stem. It has nodes and internodes. It also has scaly leaves. You can also see some axillary buds growing out from the nodes. The farmer grow ginger from small pieces of ginger. So ginger, if you see the ginger, they have got a photograph over here of ginger. It is something like this. So you take any shape of ginger, the ginger is always like this, and then you will be having such kind of scales on top of it. So the ginger will always have such scales and nodes. Okay, so these are the nodes. So this will be the nodes. These are the nodes over here, and there will be scales on that. There could be some kind of a bud also over here, and the between these two areas is called, this part is over here is called as the internode. So there will be internode, scaly leaves. And if you just take a part of it, suppose I take only this much part of it, only this much part over here with one of the node over there, and place it inside the soil, you will find a new ginger plant will start growing from here. So there will be the leaf coming from this particular part, and the ginger plant will grow from only a small piece of ginger here. So the farmers do this way. They have take one ginger, cut it into many pieces with one of the nodes being present inside, and they grow into a new plant. So it's a very easy way by which the ginger can be grown. So you can see they are given an activity to grow ginger. So take a healthy piece of ginger, remove one large bit of it, place the bit in a small in the moist soil in a flower pot. Watch this setup for 8 to 10 days. Sprinkle water every day over the soil to keep it moist. In due course of time, the axillary bud grows into aerial shoots to form new plant. So you can see that the conclusion is ginger has nodes and internodes, and the nodes carry thin, dry, brown, papery, scaly leaves. So these are the scaly leaves on top of it. There will be scaly leaves on top of it over here. And axillary bud grow out from the nodes to produce new plants. So from the nodes there will be axillary buds, so which is going to grow into a new plant. So there will be buds. So it will be bud will be like this. This will be a bud, this part, and then there will be this thing. So from here a new plant. So this is a bud from where you can have a particular kind of a plant grown. Similarly, potato is another example of modified stem. Potato bears buds. Now this you may have even seen sometime, because if you see a potato, if this is a potato, you will find that there will be certain kinds of things like this. They are called as the eye, and sometimes on that eye you see a green colored bud on top of it. Many of the potatoes what we normally get it from the market may have this thing. Normally when they clean it, it just gets removed, but sometimes it is just retained over there. So such are the buds. Now these are the buds which are going to grow. So the buds, okay, the potato bears buds called the eye. So these are called as the eye of the potato, and so potatoes bear buds called the eyes. Cut a piece of potato with an eye, put this piece in moist soil, New plants grow from these buds within a few days. Potatoes kept in humid, warm months may grow out shoots. So, if placed in soil, they form complete plant. So we can see over here that accordingly, ginger and potato are called modified stem. So ginger and potato both are called as modified stem because they perform additional functions of food storage and vegetative propagation. So we can see that potato is not only being used to be, see, potato, we know that it is a kind of a thing which is going to store the starch in the for the plant. So plant ka jitna bhi excess starch hai, that is going to be stored in the potato. So it is going to act as a storage media, storage thing. But at the same time, not only storage, it can also act as a propagation. So it is also a modified stem for the new plant to grow from here. So that's why ginger and potato are called modified stem because they perform additional function to store food storage and vegetative propagation. They also given an activity for potato. So that is growing a potato by vegetative method should be performed preferably in those months when the atmospheric temperature is moderate and there is enough moisture in the atmosphere. Take a potato, preferably one in which some green leafy bud are already sprouted out from the eye, and put this potato in a moist soil in a manner that the potato is covered with just a thin layer of soil. Keep the potato in a shady place. Watch it for 7 to 8 days. Sprinkle some water every day on the soil to keep it moist. Each green leafy bud grows into a new plant. Each new individual plant together with some tuber parts can be separated from the rest of the grown separately. So that's why once it is grown, you can take that particular part and grow it somewhere else and it becomes a new plant altogether. So in this way, the potatoes can be grown, which is a modified stem. Even an onion. So onion is the healthy. So here vegetative reproduction in an onion is that to take a healthy onion bulb and put it in moist soil or in the flower pot. Watch it for 8 to 10 days. Sprinkle some water every day over the soil to keep it moist. In due course of time, the axillary bud protected by the scaly leaves scales grow into an aerial shoot to form the plant. So you see the onion is like this. So it is going to be this way. This is the onion. You have got the inside scaly leaves over here. So inside over here inside, there will be a green color part which is really going to grow and there is growing into a new shoot over here. So this way the reproduction is going the propagation is going to take place. And onion bulb has a thick short stem in the form of a condensed disc visible in the vertical section. When you cut it, you can see this thing. When you cut up onion like this, vertical section, you can easily see this thing. The smallest part in the center is that particular bulbs. It is called as the onion bulb. So that's why they are already given in the figure also, the stem and the terminal bud and the fleshy leaves. So this bears fleshy overlapping scaly leaves. These are the overlapping scaly leaves over here. Storing food material. The disc-like stem bears terminal and axillary buds, and the axillary buds grow into a new green aerial shoot under favorable environmental conditions. So you can see that accordingly, ginger, potato and onion, these are called as modified stem because they are a stem which is going to grow into a new plant. So that is the reproduction by stem. So in reproduction by stem, the part of the stem is going to be either in the form of the nodes and internodes in case of a ginger, it could be the eye in case of a potato, or a bulb in case of a onion. So in this way, the reproduction by the stem takes place. So that is one part. Okay. Now we move on